one other member of this court team that is worth noting. And sometimes I forget to make note of this. Sometimes in a courtroom, things seem obvious to us because we're here so often. We know it. But they're not always so obvious to others or to those not familiar with court proceedings. And I say it for this reason. Some years ago, I had a case on trial, much like this. The evidence was presented, the jury deliberated, the jury returned a verdict, and I went up to thank the jurors after they had returned their verdict and been discharged. And as customary, I thanked them for the service, and I asked if there were any questions. And one juror raised their hand and said, I was wondering about the sidebar related to some piece of evidence and what was being discussed. And I explained the evidentiary principles that we were kicking around to determine whether that evidence could come in. And then another juror raised their hand and asked about some other particular with regard to the case, and I answered that to the best that I could. And then a third juror raised their hand, and I said, yes, ma'am, what is your question? And the juror said, well, I was very concerned during trial, but no one else seemed to be so worried. Why was that woman on oxygen? And as I say, sometimes we think things are obvious, and they're not. We are being recorded in this proceeding by a voice reporter. Nancy King was it yesterday? Tomorrow. Tomorrow is Nancy's 30th anniversary as a voice reporter for the Superior Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So for the last 29 years and 364 days, Ms. King has recorded everything that has been said in a court setting during a trial and during various hearings. Because we are what they call a court of record, and so everything is recorded. And Ms. King uses a voice reporting system as opposed to a stenographic system. Stenography is on a little machine, and they type. Ms. King repeats everything that is said in this courtroom into a recording system such that at the end of a case, if there is a need, a transcript of proceedings can be prepared. So please understand, Ms. King is a very valued part of our court family. I'm very lucky to have her. And she is quite healthy, but is recording these proceedings. Now, we heard the opening statements of both sides. And recall what I told you a little bit earlier. Opening statements are the attorney's opportunity to give you an overview of what they expect the evidence will show or will not show. But it's that big picture of what the evidence ought to be. Opening statements are not designed to be argument. And to the extent either of the attorneys in opening statements argued to you, suggested to you conclusions you should be drawing, please understand that is more appropriate for a closing argument, and you should focus on what counsel said in their opening statements as to what they anticipate this evidence will be, or what they anticipate will be gaps in the evidence to be presented or conflicts in the evidence to be presented. And at the close of the case, I will give you instructions of law. That is my function. That is my exclusive function, is to state the law. So to the extent either counsel in opening statements talked about what the law requires, please put that aside, because I will give you formal and complete instructions on what the law requires, on what the elements of each crime is, and what it is the Commonwealth must prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That all comes at the end of the case. And with those instructions, let us proceed now with the presentation of evidence. Is the Commonwealth prepared to call a witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth calls Sapphira Furtado.
Your Honor, the interpreter would like to identify himself for the record. Salo Salmon, certified Cape Verdean Creole. President, the interpreter has his own.
Thank you, sir.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony that you shall give this court and jury in the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Kindly follow the officer to the stand, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, this witness is being assisted by a certified interpreter, a court-certified interpreter, which is entirely customary in our courts when a witness is either more fluent in a different language or feels that they comprehend and can testify better in a native language. Then we make use of interpreters. So please don't draw anything into the fact that this witness is being assisted by a foreign language interpreter. It's customary. Mr. Hagan.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Boa tarde, senhora.
Boa tarde.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell both your first and last names for the court reporter, please?
Vou podia introduzir boa cabeça para senhores e senhoras de júri e, por favor, escreve o primeiro e último nome para ata.
Meu nome é Safira Teixeira
My name is Safira Teixeira
Furtado.
And can you just spell the last two names, ma'am, if you would?
E, por favor, escreve os últimos dois nomes, se você podia.
T-E-I-X. Não falei escrever. I-R-A.
T-E-I-X-E-I-R-A.
Furtado.
And Furtado.
That's F-U-R-T-A-D-O, correct, ma'am?
Yeah.
Que é F-U-R-T-A-D-O. Yeah.
Ms. Furtado, how old are you?
Senhora Furtado, quanto ano que você tem?
35.
35.
Where did you grow up?
Na onde que você cria?
Na Cabo Verde.
In Cape Verde.
What part of Cape Verde, ma'am?
Qual parte de Cabo Verde, senhora?
Praia.
Praia.
And ma'am, if you would, for those who may not know, where is the country of Cape Verde?
E para que fica sabe, na onde que fica país de Cabo Verde?
Na África.
In Africa.
You indicated that you grew up in Pria, Cape Verde. Is that the capital of Cape Verde, ma'am?
Bo indica uma cria na praia Cabo Verde, que ela é capital de Cabo Verde?
Did you have any, do you have...
Hold on. Ma'am, if you would, we need to hear yes or no.
Senhora, se você puder, nós temos que ouvir sim ou não.
Ok.
Ok.
And ma'am, are you employed or do you go to school?
Senhora, você tem trabalho ou você vai à escola?
Trabalho.
Work.
What type of work do you do, ma'am?
Qual tipo de trabalho que você faz, senhora?
Me cashier e muita clean também.
I am a cashier and I also do cleaning.
And without telling the exact address, ma'am, is there a particular part of the city of Boston where you live?
E sem falar, bu direção direto. Tem alguma parte de Boston onde que você mora?
Yeah. Dorchester.
Yeah, Dorchester.
How long have you lived in Dorchester, ma'am?
Para quanto tempo que você mora na Dorchester, senhora?
8 anos.
8 years.
And when was it that you first came to the United States?
E quando que foi a primeira vez que você veio à América?
Na 2009.
In 2009.
During that time since 2009, have you lived in Dorchester that whole period?
E durante aquele tempo, desde que você veio à América, você mora na Dorchester todo aquele tempo?
Sim.
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm calling your attention now to any siblings that you have. Can you describe how many brothers or sisters you have?
Senhora, gosto de dirigir boa atenção para qualquer irmão ou irmã que você tenha. Qual irmãos ou irmãs que você tem?
Minha irmã, Safira Furtado.
One. My brother, Safiro Furtado.
And Safiro Furtado, your brother, just for the record, is that S-A-F-I-R-O?
E Safiro Furtado, paata, está escrevido S-A-F-I-R-O?
Yes.
Yes.
Was your brother Safiro older or younger than you, ma'am?
Bo irmão, Safiro, ele era mais grande ou mais novo que Nhan?
Mais novo.
Younger.
How much younger was he than you?
Quanto ano mais novo que ele era?
3 anos.
3 years.
I'm calling your attention now to your brother Safiro Furtado. Did he come from Cape Verde to the United States after you did?
Agora, se dirige boa atenção para Safiro Furtado. Ele vem para a América depois que bem?
Sim.
Yes.
And when exactly did he come to the United States or to America?
E quando exatamente que ele vem para a América?
Na dezembro de 2015.
In December 2000,
Não, não, não.
2015.
Não, não, não. Não fica nervoso.
No, no, no.
2010.
Is it 2011, ma'am?
2010.
2010.
2011, senhora, ou 2010?
11.
2011.
Can you describe, ma'am, what Safiro Furtado did for work or for school prior to coming to the United States?
Você pode explicar coisa que Safiro Furtado está fazer para a escola ou para trabalho quando ele vem para a América?
Ele vai à escola até 11. Quando ele termina, ele vai para Boa Vista. Ele era guia turista e está cuidando de animal.
He came to America till 11, then he went to Boa Vista and cared for animals.
Ele era guia turista.
He was a tour guide.
He was a tour guide? And what
Ele
kind
era guia
of...
turista.
That was in Cape Verde?
Yes.
Que ele foi na Cabo Verde? Yes.
And was that a tourist destination that he was a tour guide for?
E aquele lugar era lugar de turista, na onde que ele trabalhava como guia turista?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you know how far Safiro Furtado, your brother, went in school?
E você sabe que ano que o irmão Safiro Furtado, aquele ano que chegou bem na escola?
Até 11.
Till the 11th.
11th grade.
11º ano?
Ma'am, when your brother Safiro came to the United States in December of 2011, what was the purpose of him coming to the country?
Senhora, quando Safiro, o irmão, vem para a América em dezembro de 2011, para que vem para a América?
Ele vem visitando e bem mojava assim, mas nós mais para onde tinha tio tempo que mojava ele.
He came to visit us and came to see our mother because it had been a long time since he had seen her.
And was he planning to stay for any certain period of time, or was he hoping to stay indefinitely, ma'am?
Ele ficava de ficar por tempo específico ou ele ficava de ficar para tempo que não específico?
Não, isso vai para trás para ser trabalho, como ele gostava tio de ser trabalho.
No, he was going back to his work because he enjoyed his work very much.
And when was he planning to go back to do his work?
E quando que ficava de volta para fazer seu trabalho?
Dia estava quase na dias que estava como dia tinha 5 meses.
It was almost time for him to go back because it had already been 5 months.
During that 5 months, ma'am, where did Safiro live when he was in Dorset? He was in the United States?
Durante aqueles 5 meses, na onde que Safiro morava quando estava na América?
Junto comigo e minha mãe na Dorchester.
With me and my mother in Dorchester.
May I approach the witness, Ron?
You may.
Chega perto de testemunha.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you a photograph, and I'd ask you to look at the photograph and tell us if you recognize the person in that photograph.
Senhora, você mostrou foto. Fulano, se você reconhece que é alguém que está na foto.
Claro, meu irmão.
Of course, it's my brother.
And do you know how old your brother was in this photograph, ma'am?
Você sabe quanto ano que o irmão tinha nessa foto, senhora?
28.
28.
Your Honor, after the photograph of Safiro Furtado as the first number exhibit.
Any objection, counsel?
Without objection.
Está presente aquele primeiro foto de Safiro Furtado como prova.
Ma'am, I'm just putting Exhibit 1 onto the screen.
Está põe aquele primeiro prova no ecrã.
Is that a photograph of your brother, ma'am?
Aquela é foto de meu irmão, senhora.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the age that your brother was in this photograph, age 28, ultimately was that the age that he was when he died?
E aquela idade que tinha nessa foto, 28 anos de idade. É com aquela idade que ele morre?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ms. Furtado, can you tell us what your brother Safiro did for work during the months between December 2011 and his death in July of 2012?
Senhora, vou poder falar qual trabalho que o irmão está fazendo durante aquele dezembro de 2011 e julho de 2012?
Yeah, ele trabalhava com nosso primo na limpeza.
Yes, he worked with our cousin cleaning.
Cleaning what type of places, ma'am?
Está fazendo a limpeza de qual tipo de lugar, senhora?
E que limpeza que você toma lugar para te limpar, não que sabe modelo.
It's the cleaning where they take places and they do cleaning. I don't know how to explain.
Is it cleaning that's done overnight of businesses
É limpeza que está fazendo de noite de negócios
or schools?
ou escalas.
Yeah, que esse tipo.
Yes, that sort.
What hours did your brother Safiro work between 2011 December and July of 2012?
Qual horas que o irmão te trabalhava entre dezembro de 2011 e julho de 2012?
De 10 para 2.
From 10 to 2.
10 at night or 10 in the morning?
10 de noite ou 10 de para manhã?
De noite.
At night.
So the overnight shift from 10 p.m. until 2 a.m.?
Então, aquele turno de noite, te trabalha de 10 de noite até 2 horas de madrugada?
Sim.
Yes.
Ms. Furtado, I'm calling your attention now to a particular date, that being Sunday, July 15th, the year 2012. Do you know whether or not Sunday was a day or a night off for Safiro, your brother?
Gosto de dirigir a atenção para domingo, 15 de julho de 2012. Você sabe se domingo era dia que Safiro, o irmão, trabalhava?
Não.
Não.
He had to work that day?
Ele tinha que trabalhar aquele dia?
Não é que ele trabalha fim de semana.
No, he does not work weekends.
So he was off on Sunday night into Monday morning.
Então, ele estava de folga de domingo de noite de segunda.
Yes.
Yes.
Call your attention now, ma'am, again to that Sunday, July 15th, 2012. When was the last time that you saw your brother on that date?
Você dirigiu a atenção para aquele noite de 15 de julho de 2012. Quando que foi a última vez que você viu o irmão?
Quando estava deitado, levanta para o bathroom, estava na cozinha e falou assim, amigo, com que ele pensei.
I was lying down and I had gotten up and went to the kitchen and he told me that his friend invited him to go out.
Do you know where he was going?
Você sabe para onde que essa estava?
Yeah, isso mesmo estava club.
Yeah, he said he was going to club.
Manica queria lá, ele fazia amigo que insiste com a pessoa.
But he didn't even want to go. It was his friend who kept insisting with him to go out.
Ma'am, do you know whether or not Safira went to clubs often?
Senhora, você sabe se Safiro costumava ir para clubes chubes?
Não, eu não acostumava, não.
No, he did not used to, no.
Who was the friend who he was going out to the club with on this night?
Quem que era aquele amigo que estava para o clube com ele naquele noite?
É del Maro, esse é o melhor amigo que está falando.
Edelmaro. It was his best friend, is what he would tell me.
E Dani também se faz.
And Dani also.
And does Delmar stand for, is that a nickname for Aquilino Friere?
E Delmar, que ele é nominho para Aquilino Fier?
Não conheço só para del Maro.
I only know him by Delmar.
And calling your attention now to the man you mentioned as Danny. Is Danny a nickname for Daniel Diabreu?
Agora, deixa eu dirigir boa atenção para Danny. Danny é nominho para Daniel Diabreu?
Yes.
Yes.
How long had you known Danny and Delmar?
Para quanto tempo que você conhece Danny com Delmar?
Del Maro não conheço para teu tempo na Cabo Verde, como eu dizia, era amigo desde Cabo Verde. Dani não conheço dia só que não já, minha irmã.
I knew Delmar for a long time because I knew him since Cape Verde. Danny, I only knew him one day. They went to school together.
Both Danny and Delmar, Ms. Furtado, were they both friends of your brother Safiro?
Tudo dois. Danny com Delmar, senhora Safiro, eles eram amigos de meu irmão?
Já, minha irmã foi dizer era amigo.
Yes, my brother said they were friends.
Did your brother Safiro play soccer, ma'am?
Meu irmão Safiro jogava futebol?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you know whether or not he had practices or games on Mondays?
E você sabe se tinha ou não treino nas segunda-feiras?
Yeah.
I think,
That's a show, mas parece que sim.
I think, yeah. I'm not sure, but I think so.
Ms. Furtado, I'm calling your attention now to that night, Sunday, July 15, 2012. You indicated that the last time you saw your brother was in the kitchen when he told you he was going to a club with Delmar and Danny. Was that the last time you saw your brother alive?
Senhora, eu estou dirigindo boa atenção para aquela noite de 15 de julho de 2012, quando bobava a cozinha e boaja o irmão. Aquela foi a última vez que boaja o irmão?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm calling your attention now to the next day. At some point, did you receive word that your brother was dead?
Gosto de dirigir boa atenção para aquele próximo dia. Em algum momento, fica a saber, mas o irmão estava morto?
Já não sabe no trabalho, mulher tinha tio que vai buscar no trabalho.
Yes, I was at work. My uncle's wife went to go get me at work.
Mas que foi memória, foi um acidente, mas que tinha coragem para aquela.
But she did not tell me that he had died. She told me that he had gotten into an accident because she did not have the courage to tell me.
Did you later, in fact, learn, ma'am, that your brother Safiro was dead?
Mas logo, de fato, fica a saber, mas o irmão Safiro morreva?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go to the office of the chief medical examiner with other family members to identify his body?
Bubei para escritório de oficial de defunto para identificar se corpo para falar ele era o irmão?
Sim.
Yes.
And the body, or the photograph of the body that you saw, ma'am, was that in fact your brother Safiro?
E aquele corpo, comparado com aquela foto que no hoje, de fato, era o irmão Safiro?
Sim.
Yes.
Finally, Ms. Furtado, did you ever see your brother Safiro carry a gun at any point when he was here in the United States?
Finalmente, senhora Safiro, algum vez hoje o irmão Safiro porta ou anda com pistola quando estava ali na América?
Não, nunca. Ele
Não.
nunca estava.
No, never. He never.
And additionally, Ms. Furtado, did you ever know your brother to purchase or use drugs while he was in the United States?
E, senhora Furtado, algum vez você sabia que o irmão ele comprava droga quando estava ali na América?
Não, ele nunca usa droga.
No, my brother does not use drugs.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Obrigado, senhora. Que eu tenho mais perguntas.
Mr. Sullivan.
Good afternoon, Ms. Furtado.
Boa tarde, senhora Furtado.
Boa tarde.
Good afternoon.
First, my condolences for your loss.
Primeiro, minha pésamos por perda.
Okay.
I have only just a couple of questions.
Tenho só algumas perguntas.
The first, when you went to the medical examiner's office, did they inform you that your brother, in fact, did have drugs in his system?
Primeiro, quando veio para o escritório de examinador médico do defunto, eles informou que o irmão tinha drogas nesse sistema?
Não. Se ele usava droga, mas que tenha droga.
No. If he did not use drugs, how could he have drugs?
Do you know the name Alexander Bradley?
Você conhece o nome Alexandre Bradley?
Não.
No.
Do you recall your brother ever mentioning the name Alexander Bradley?
Você lembra do irmão alguma vez fala de aquele nome Alexandre Bradley?
Não.
No.
It's fair to say, then, Ms. Furtado, that actually I'm going to draw your attention to July 15th, 2012. It's fair to say on that date, you don't know whether your brother and Alexander Bradley argued.
Instead dirige boa atenção
Stated she didn't know Alexander.
Excuse me?
I believe she stated she didn't know Alexander.
Rephrase the question, if you would, sir.
esta torna a fazer pergunta de outra maneira.
Are you aware, or did you learn that your brother, the night of July 12th, July 15th, 2012, were you aware that your brother, or did you learn that your brother argued with someone other than Mr. Hernandez?
Você sabia que naquela noite de 12 de julho, mas na noite de 15 de julho de 2012, meu irmão discute com outro alguém que era Aaron Hernandez?
Não, ele vai discutir comigo.
No, he did not argue with anyone.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's one more question. You were not at the club, were you?
Desculpam, mais uma pergunta. Bomeca estava no clube, certo?
Não.
Não.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Ms. Furtado.
Muito obrigado pelo tempo, Sra. Furtado.
Ok.
Ok.
Anything further?
Que tema-
Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado.
Please watch your step.
Tome cuidado com o caso.
Mr. Hagan.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth calls Nusa Diabreu.
You solemnly swear the testimony you shall give this court and jury in the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Time to follow you up there.
May I inquire?
Please.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell both your first and last name, please?
My name is Neusa Bro. That's Neusa, last name Abreu.
How old are you, ma'am?
I'm 33.
And are you employed?
Yes,
What type of work do you do?
I'm a manager at Marshall's.
How long have you had that job?
About 3.5 years now.
Do you have any children?
Yes, I have 3 daughters.
How old are they?
I have a 16 years old, 14, and 13 years old.
Where do you live?
I live in Dorchester
How long have you lived in Dorchester?
since 1996.
And prior to living in Dorchester since 1996, where did you live before that, ma'am?
And Rhode Island, 10 years.
And where were you born?
I was born in Cape Verde, Fogo.
And the jurors may not have heard you. Did you say Fogo of Cape Verde?
Yes,
Is that one of the cities of the country of Cape Verde?
yes.
And how many brothers or sisters do you have?
I have 3 brothers and 9 sisters.
Ma'am, I'm going to call your attention now to one brother in particular. Do you have a brother named Daniel Abreu or Diabreu?
Yes, I do.
And was he an older brother or a younger brother?
Older brother,
How much older was he than you?
1.5 years or so.
Did you grow up together?
Not that much.
Calling your attention now to your brother Daniel and his life in Cape Verde. At some point, did he come to the United States?
Yes,
Prior to coming to the United States, did he graduate from high school?
yes, he did.
After high school, what did he do?
He joined the military for 2.5 years.
The Cape Verde military?
Yes,
Was he with any particular branch of that military?
not so sure.
And after the 2 years as military personnel for the country of Cape Verde, what did your brother Daniel do after that?
He became a police officer.
A police officer in Cape Verde?
Yes,
Was he with any particular area of Cape Verde, or is it a national police force? What is
he
it?
was the national police.
And how long was he a police officer in Cape Verde?
Maybe 5 years or less.
And did your brother ever have any children or marry while he was in Cape Verde?
No,
At some point, did your brother Daniel come to the United States?
yes,
When did he come?
August of 2008.
And do you know why he came?
Well, he came to see all of us that was here beside him and spend some time knowing the rest of the family that was here.
How many other family members of his and yours ultimately were living in the United States at that point?
Well, I have other siblings from my mom, and I have 2 other brothers from my dad and a sister.
And when Daniel came to the country in 2008, did he stay essentially from 2008 until his death in 2012?
Yes,
And during that time, where did he live?
he lived in Roxbury first, and then he moved to Dorchester.
And during that time that he lived in Roxbury and then later Dorchester, what type of work did he do?
He worked multiple for a cleaning business.
How many different cleaning businesses did he work for?
Well, there's one, but he does 3 jobs.
So he worked for a cleaning business?
Yes,
What were the other 2 jobs, ma'am?
also cleaning.
And what hours would he typically work?
He works overnight.
From what hour to what hour, if you recall?
Usually sometime I'll depend. If he's doing 2, he goes from like 7, so he'll come home like 7 in the morning.
How frequently would you see your brother during the time period between 2008 to 2012?
He comes by every weekend to check on my kids.
And was he close to your kids?
Very close.
And did you become aware of not only his work schedule, but some of his social circles, the people he hung out with?
Yes.
Who were some of his closest friends?
Well, most likely my other brother. They was very close. Then he has other outside friends.
Did you ever hear of Zafiro Furtado?
Yes, I did.
And was he a friend of your brother Danny's?
Yes, he talked about a lot about him when he was coming.
And what about Aquilino Ferrer, also by the nickname Delmar? Did you ever meet him or know of him having any relationship with your brother?
I know him before my brother came here.
And Rashidi Sanchez and Gerson Lopes, did you know them?
No.
Can I approach the witness, Ron?
You may.
So, Bray, I'm going to show you a photograph. I'd ask you if you recognize the person depicted in that photograph.
Of course, that's my brother.
Is that your brother, Daniel Abreu?
Yes,
And how old was he in this photograph, ma'am?
29.
How old was Mr. Abreu, your brother Danny, when he died?
29.
Your Honor, offer the photograph of Daniel Abreu as the next number exhibit.
Any objection, counsel?
Without objection.
Thank you. Exhibit 2.
Ma'am, I'm placing exhibit 2 on the screen. Is that your brother Danny?
Yes.
And as you testified, ma'am, he's 29 in that photograph.
Yes.
Do you know how soon or how prior before his death this photograph was taken?
Not too far.
Now, you indicated that he worked the overnight shift and he worked 3 jobs. I'm calling your attention now to Sunday, July 15th, the year 2012. Do you recall that date, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And when was the last time that you saw your brother, Danny, on that date?
July 15, around 7:30ish.
7:30 at night?
Yes.
And describe for us, if you would, the circumstances that last time you saw your brother.
Well, he had called me while I was at work. He asked me to borrow the car because he wanted to go out because he works a lot and don't get out much. I told him yes. Once I got home, he was there waiting for me with my mom. And every time he comes around, my mom always fixes him a plate. He eats. Then he kissed me. He said he will see me in the morning.
And you said that he asked to borrow your car. Did he have his own car?
No,
And you said that he didn't get to go out much. What did you mean by that?
because he worked a lot to support his mom and his 2 siblings back at home.
So the money he made, he would give to your mother and to your siblings back home?
Yes.
Now, when you saw him that last time at about 7:30 on July 15th, 2012, were you aware of what his plans were as far as where he was going to go and who he was going to go with?
No. He would just say he was just going to go out, have some fun, and come back.
And you've already kind of answered this, ma'am, but how frequently did you know of him to go out to clubs?
Not much. Maybe 2-3 times a month.
And other than that, he was usually working?
Yes.
Did you ultimately let him borrow your car?
Yes, I did.
What kind of car did you have back then?
That's a 2003 BMW 3 Series.
When you gave him that car, ma'am, did you indicate to him when you needed the car back by?
Yes, I had to work 9 the next morning, and I worked far, so I told him to be back about 7:30 in the morning. He told me, I never let you down.
So he promised to have the car back by the morning?
Yes, he did.
May I approach the witness, Ron?
You may.
Mr. Bray, I'm showing you a photograph. I'd ask you if you recognize what's depicted in that photograph.
That's a picture of my car.
And that's a fair and accurate representation of the car that you owned in 2012, July of 2012. You've described as a 2003 BMW.
Yes,
And what color was it?
it was a silver car.
And you recognize the license plate is yours as well?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, after the photograph of the BMW is the next number.
These, how many?
The BMW, photograph
Single photo. Any objection, counsel?
Without objection.
Thank you, sir. Exhibit 3.
There's exhibit 3 on the screen. That's the BMW that you owned, ma'am?
Yes,
And that's the BMW that you let your brother Danny use on July 15th, 2012.
yes.
And did you leave some of your property in there? Things like a change purse?
I
you
don't
know.
think so. There was only one teddy bear and had our last name on it that belongs to him.
So, but you did leave some personal property in the car when he took it.
Yes,
Ma'am, I'm calling your attention now to that next morning, or actually staying on that night. What time did you go to bed that night?
around 9:30 or 10 o'clock.
And had you heard it all from your brother Danny between when he left sometime after 8 p.m. till that time?
No,
When you woke up the next morning, did you check and see whether or not your car was there?
yes,
And what did you find?
I didn't find my car there.
And was that unusual for Danny not to do something he told you he would do?
That was very unusual.
What did you do?
Well, I called him repeatedly, multiple times. He did not answer.
You called his cell phone?
Yes,
And do you remember what number you called from?
it was my old cell phone number.
Do you remember that one still?
No,
How many times did you call him?
more than 10 times, I know that.
What happened next, ma'am?
I had to call my younger brother to take me to work because I have to open the store in order for me to have a job.
And did you ultimately get to work with the help of your other brother?
Yes, my younger brother drove me to work. And then we still kept calling him. My brother had called him a couple of times because we couldn't get a hold of him. We thought maybe
And when you say
he
him, you mean
overslept.
Danny, your brother.
Yes.
What happened after that?
I was at work and then he kept calling, no answer. And
At some point, did you receive a phone call from a relative or friend?
I received a call from state police.
And what did you learn from speaking to a state police officer, trooper?
He just had asked me if I own a silver BMW and if I knew anybody by the name Daniel Abreu. And I say yes. And I had asked him what happened. He just came out straight and said that my brother was dead.
And were you at work at that time?
Yes, I was.
And what happened after that, ma'am?
I don't know, I blacked out. I just woke up in the back rooms.
Mrs. Breyer, sometime later that night, did you travel with your brother, your surviving brother, to the office of the chief medical examiner, or what's often referred to as the morgue, in order for your brother Eli to identify Daniel's body?
Yes, I didn't have the courage to see him that way.
But your brother Eli did identify his body, is that correct?
Yes.
Sabray, calling your attention now again to your brother during that time period. He was living in the area of Dorchester, Roxbury, leading into 2015. Did you ever know your brother to carry a gun?
No, never.
What about drug use? Did you know your brother to be involved in purchasing drugs or anything like that?
No.
And have you ever heard of somebody named Alexander, other than perhaps in this case, in 2015, had you ever heard of a person named Alexander Bradley?
Never in my life.
And at times, ma'am, during your following of this particular case, now before the jury, or through media accounts, have you had opportunities to see photographs of somebody purported to be Alexander Bradley?
I seen pictures on Facebook, but that's...
And did you recognize that person as someone you'd ever seen before in your life?
No,
And did you recognize that person as someone you had ever heard of or seen with your brother Daniel D'Abreu?
no, because if that was a friend, I wouldn't know him.
One moment. Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Mr. Sullivan.
Good afternoon, Mr. Brew.
Good afternoon.
And please accept my condolences for your loss. I'll be very brief with just a few questions.
Thank you.
I want to ask you a couple of questions about the car. At some point, the police gave you the car back.
No, I never got the car back.
And to this day, you're not in possession of the car.
No,
And do you know where the car is?
no, I don't.
And your brother he was married, right?
Well, after a while, yeah, but not in Cape Verde.
Right, but here in the U.S., I mean, and apologies if my question was unclear, when he was in the U.S., he was married.
Yeah, for a couple of months, yes, before he passed.
Were you aware that your brother was in a dispute with a narcotics provider from Connecticut?
No, that doesn't sound like my brother at all.
That's all, no further questions.
One follow-up question.
You may.
Mr. Brewer, just regarding your BMW and the questions Mr. Sullivan just asked you regarding whether or not you ever got it back, did you own the car outright or did you still owe on the car loan?
The car was leased from Riverwork Credit Union.
And what happened to the car after the killing of the death of your brother?
The only thing I got out of there was a plate.
They
That
gave you
was
the
it.
plate back?
That was it. I didn't
Do you-
even see the car. I didn't touch the car.
Do you know whether or not the either the leasing agency or the insurance company, again, to your knowledge, if you have it, whether or not they deemed the car to be totaled?
The car was total loss.
And then what happened with your responsibility on the car? Did you get any money back or did you have to pay?
I didn't get no money back, but they paid to the finance what I had the loan from.
And to the best of your understanding, Mrs. Breyer, did in fact the insurance company eventually take possession of the car when it was released by the Boston police?
I believe so.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Thank you very much. You may step down. Please watch your step. Commonwealth.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth calls Sean McCann, M-C-C-A-N-N.
You solemnly swear the testimony you should give this court and jury in the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, sir. County Public Officer.
Inquirer.
Please.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell your last name for the record?
You don't know Sean McCann? Last name M-C-C-A-N-N.
And can you keep your voice up a little bit, sir, or maybe move the microphone a little bit, just so we can hear you?
McCann, M-C-C-A-N-N.
And sir, how old are you?
29.
Are you employed?
No.
Do you go to school?
No.
Sir, where did you grow up?
Somerville.
I'm calling your attention now to the year 2012, specifically July of 2012. Were you working at that time?
Yes.
What type of work were you doing?
I was working at a pizza restaurant in Charlestown.
And I'm calling your attention now, Mr. McCann, to a particular area within the city of Boston, oftentimes referred to as the Theater District, and I mean the area of Tremont Street, where it intersects with Stewart Street. Are you familiar with that area?
Yes.
And back in 2012, how much familiarity did you have with that area?
Pretty good.
Did you spend a lot of time there?
Yeah.
And what were the circumstances of you spending a lot of time in that area? sir?
My friend was a DJ at Underbar.
And your friend, what is her name?
Sophin Fawn.
And for the record, is that S-O-P-H-I-N, last name P-H-O-N?
Yes.
And you said she was a bartender at Underbar.
DJ.
A DJ, I'm sorry, at Underbar. What street was Underbar on?
Believe it's Tremont.
All right, first witness?
You may.
Mr. McCann, I'm going to show you a large board. I'd ask you if you recognize the area depicted there, sir. This being Tremont Street, this being Cure, that being Venue, Tufts Medical Center Garage.
It'd be across from Cure.
Well, first, do you recognize the diagram to be a fair and accurate representation, a map of that area?
Yes.
Go out for the map as the next number.
Is there an objection?
Without objection.
Without objection, Exhibit 4.
And Your Honor, just so we can use the document camera as well, I'd ask that a 8.5 by 11 photograph of the same diagram be 4A. If that's agreeable to the court.
That makes sense, 4A.
Mr. McCann, I'm going to place on the screen, it's probably a little easier for you and the jurors to see than the board, Exhibit 4A. I'm calling your attention out, sir, to the area that I have zoomed in on, where I'm putting my pen, where there's a star. Is that where Club Cure is located on Tremont Street?
Yes.
And the intersection is here with Stewart Street, where I have the pen. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you indicated that the bar or club where your good friend Sophin Fawn was a DJ was across the street called Underbar.
Correct.
Is that generally in this area right where I have the pen there?
Yes.
And how long was your friend a DJ there, sir?
Like 5 or 6 years.
And when your friend would be DJing, did you spend a lot of time going there with her?
Yes.
So I'm calling your attention out a particular night. The night was Sunday, July 15th, the year 2012. Do you remember that night, sir?
Yes.
And what did you do that night?
Just I usually go in with her to keep her company, make sure she has all the equipment and stuff like that.
What time did she start work that night?
Around 10:30, 11.
And did you get there with her at 10:30 or 11?
Yes.
And that was a Sunday night. Do you know what that night's frequently called as far as the bars?
I believe Underbar is called Hot Mess Sundays.
Hot Mess Sundays. Have you ever heard of the term industry night?
No.
So your friend Sophin was DJing that night. What time did she get off of work?
Around like 2:15.
And at 2 or 2:15, when she got off of work, what did you and Sophin, your friend, do next?
We walked to our car
Where was the car parked?
near Jock's Cabaret.
Where's that?
It's around the block behind the park that used to be there on the corner on the right-hand side.
Do you know what street that is?
I believe it's Washington Street.
And after you got your car, where did you go from there and what was your plan?
We actually went to get food at New Golden Gate in Chinatown.
And that's a food restaurant in Chinatown?
Correct.
What was your intention to do with the food? Were you going to bring it somewhere or just have it for yourselves?
We got some for ourselves and we bought some for a friend that's also a bartender at Underbar.
Did you and Sofin bring the food to Underbar to the bartender?
Yes.
And do you know about what time that was?
2:30, maybe.
Now, Mr. McCann, prior to having the opportunity to testify here today before this jury, did you have the opportunity to watch some video surveillance footage that was purportedly taken from the Tufts garage looking down on Tremont Street?
Yes.
And from looking at that surveillance video, were you able to identify your car from that video?
Yes.
What kind of car were you driving back then?
2006 FX35 Infinity.
That's a black Infinity?
Yeah.
Any further witness, Ron?
You may.
Mr. McCann, I'm going to show you 3 photographs. I'll ask you if you recognize the yellow circle area or yellow circle that's depicting a certain vehicle in those 3 photographs.
Yeah, that's my vehicle.
And that's the vehicle that when you watch the surveillance footage, you identified that as your black Infinity that you were driving on July 15, 2012?
Correct.
And just for clarification, do these appear to be 3 still photographs that somewhat show your car moving down the direction from in front of Underbar towards, going down Tremont Street towards Harold Street?
Yes.
Your Honor, for the 3 photographs of the black Infinity identified by Mr. McCann as the next number of exhibits.
Counsel, I'd like to mark them, if we can, 5A, B, and C, if that is agreeable. They're all relating to the same vehicle.
Exactly.
Any objection?
No, sir, no objection.
Very good, thank you. Exhibits 5A, B, and C.
Just placing Exhibit 5A on the screen. That should be before you as well, sir. The circled area, and now I'm placing 5B and 5C. That's your black Infinity, sir, that you were operating that night?
Yes.
And who was in the car with you?
Sofin Font.
Who was driving?
Me.
And prior to this, what we see here depicted, and according to at least the photograph that's been entered, the time listed is 2:28 and 20 seconds. Had there been any issues at all that you observed happening that night, either in Underbar or anywhere in the area?
No.
And where were you going at that point, sir?
We were actually leaving to head home.
Where were you living at the time?
We were living at 3 Summit Drive in Reading, Mass.
And in the direction you were heading home, sir, I just call your attention to the diagram, which is Exhibit 4, where I have the laser pointer. Is that the direction you were moving down towards where that red dot is?
Yes.
And the red dot that I have on Exhibit number 4, is it fair to say that that's the intersection of Shawmut and Harold?
Yes.
Please describe what, if anything, you observed, Mr. McCann, as you drove your car towards the intersection of Shawmut and Harold.
I pulled up to a silver BMW with a guy waving me down.
Was the guy waving you down?
Yes.
Prior to seeing the man waving you down, had you seen any other cars in the area?
No.
And when you say the man was waving you down, where was he in relation to the BMW?
He was to the front right corner of it.
Your Honor, approach the witness.
You may.
So I'm showing you a photograph. I'd ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, it's the BMW.
And is that a fair and accurate representation of the BMW as you saw it as you were operating down Tremont Street towards Herald?
Correct.
For the photograph is the next number exhibit.
Any objection? Thank you. Exhibit 6.
Placing exhibit 6 on the screen. Is that essentially the view that you had, sir, as you were coming down the street?
Yes.
And the man you described as coming out and waving his arms, I believe your screen should be a touch screen. Can you just make a mark where you saw him standing?
Right there.
And for the record, you're placing it just to the right of what's shown in the picture on exhibit number 6 as an open back door?
Yes.
And you have him almost in the middle of the lane of travel, is that correct?
Yes.
What happened next when you saw him waving?
He waved us down. He asked me to call 911. He had a bullet hanging out of his arm.
And when you say a bullet hanging out of his arm, just describe what
It
you
was
mean.
like lodged in his like forearm.
Could you see the bullet?
Yeah, just the end piece of it.
And what did he say?
He asked me to call 911. I called 911. There was another person there. I had told him to hold pressure on the wound because he was bleeding really bad. I got 911 on the phone. They asked me if anyone else was hurt. I asked him, and he said his 2 friends.
He said his 2 friends?
Yeah.
The other person who was holding the wound, do you know who that person was? Or
I don't know where he came from.
did you see any other cars besides yours at that point, at the scene?
No.
And you said he was losing a lot of blood. Where was he bleeding, if you could tell? Was it from the arm?
From the forearm, yeah.
Where was the blood dripping, if you know, in relation to the photograph we have on the screen, exhibit 6?
It should be right where he was standing,
So that would be the area that...
where I marked.
Where you marked. Did you stop the car, or did you pull up around the vehicle?
I didn't put the car in park. I had it basically still in drive, but I was on the brake.
And where did you stop, or where did you have the brake?
A little bit farther up in front of the car.
So you actually went in front of the car?
Yeah.
After you heard the man say to call 911 and to say that his friends were hurt, did you look into the car at all from where you were?
Yes, when I asked him about if anyone else was hurt, when he said his 2 friends, I looked back into the car and I seen the driver kind of sloped over with like a shot to his chest.
You saw a gunshot wound to his chest?
Yeah.
Did he appear to be moving at all?
No.
Did he show any signs of life?
No.
Mayor Burch, what is wrong?
Right.
Should have been reapproached briefly.